Hey everybody, thank you so much for joining me for another episode of 10 Minute Tuesday. If you haven't already, please like, share, and subscribe. And in today's episode, we have William Summerhill in the building. William, what's going on, man?
Doing well, Sekou. Doing well. Glad to be here, man. I'm
Awesome.
glad. I'm glad to see that we finally were able to get this.
Yeah, I'm glad we got it going, man. I appreciate you taking time out to record. So let's go ahead and dive into this. We've done a number of these. So William, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yes, my name is William Summerhill. I am a sales engineer over the past 15, 16 years. I actually work for Snowflake, which is a cloud-based data platform, and doing sales engineering work there. But my actual role is actually sales engineering enablement. So sort of like the Top Gun movie where Maverick was shooting down the bogeys. Well, they came to Maverick and said, "Hey, well, we need you to go to Top Gun and teach these guys how to shoot down bogeys." So that's what I do. I teach I teach sales engineers how to be the best they can be at Snowflake. So
That's awesome. Awesome. So I'm thinking about your career, right? I'm sure at a certain point you had to get your start to even get up to the way to be able to teach and everything. So, thinking about your beginning, your origin story, what really compelled you to get into data to begin with?
great story. So I've got about 25 plus years in this kind of what I like to call the all things data game. And so most of my time was spent in at Oracle. So that's kind of how the way I got started into data is actually I'm actually a mechanical engineer by education. So I went to got my degree, my BS in mechanical engineering, and went off to become a manufacturing engineer. And so I got exposed to a lot of data things by and getting into databases. Call myself a data geek, but I'm actually a database geek. So I spent a lot of time in the database world, and about 15 years of that was at Oracle. So I would say my origin story really started when I was in my manufacturing engineering role, and then I went over into a defense contractor role with Lockheed Martin, where I really got exposed to just the database world in general. Started with Sybase, and then it gravitated over into Oracle when I moved into becoming a an Oracle developer, and then from there it just went off into all kinds of different places. Like I was a data warehouse architect, I was a database developer, I was a manager for sales engineers. And then I eventually ended up in sales engineering. I've been in sales engineering for better part of 15 years now.
Wow. That's awesome. And it's like a full array where you started in one thing and then moved up and done a lot of different things. And now you're where you're at, where you're teaching people and stuff. So, wow, that's really awesome,
Yeah.
man. Yeah, I'm definitely going to pick your brain about stuff off topic, off of this off record, but we'll dive into it. Okay, so I love this question. One of my favorite questions that I like to ask is, what's been your least favorite job to date? And it doesn't have to necessarily be like data related. Like this question I like to ask is like, I was a construction worker or I was I sold pizza or something, right? So, thinking about all the jobs you had in your life, what's been your least favorite job?
So I always say every job that I've had was a growth experience, right? So even in the crappy jobs, you learned, at least you learned, hey, this is not what I want to do, right? So I would say my least favorite job, I believe, was when I was a was when I was a sales engineering manager. That probably was, that was one of those jobs where it was like I was uh, I was asked to take on the role of managing the sales engineering team with when our actual SE manager ended up leaving, and I said, sure, why not? I hadn't done it before, so I tried the jacket on and noticed that it didn't fit that well. I did okay with it. But it's definitely something that, I've always told people that don't get into a management role just to say that you're a manager. You have to
Yeah.
really want to be in a management role, because I always say folks can lead without actually being in a leadership role, right? But you do learn a lot by being in the role itself, right?
Yeah.
So so that's why I say I learned a lot in the role, but it was definitely my least favorite one. And I also have a second one where when I was manufacturing engineering, about 80% of it was pretty fun. but then the other 20% was really, really horrible. And so I couldn't say that that was my least favorite job, but at least definitely the least favorite part of being in manufacturing engineering is having to work during Christmas shutdown and during July 4th
Mm,
shutdown. And as a 20-something-year-old at that time, I didn't like that very
yeah.
much.
No, that that
So I was up to my hands in elbow grease trying to preventative maintenance machines and things of that nature. So
wow, that's really fascinating, and it leads me to a question like going off script a little bit here, but you talked about being able to be a manager. You really want to be a manager, so kind of thinking about your career. Like I think a lot of people in data, whether a DBA, data analyst, right? We get into the SQL, we get into it like we're hands on, but when it comes to leading people, that takes a different skill set. So just thinking about that progression, what's that thing that you were like, okay, I really do want to lead people? Like, what's that thing that gave you that spark to want to like be a little bit more hands off to then be love leadership of people?
that's a great question. So um, I would say that what sparked my interest at first was when when I was in sales engineering, I made it a big deal to try to be a mentor or be a coach or to help folks that were coming into the organization to kind of like get them going, teach them the ropes, understand, let them know where the skeletons are buried, that sort of thing. And I noticed that I've always had a love for like just working with teams and working with people. And I didn't really think of myself as a manager per se, but what led me to the role were two things. One was there was a vacancy, right? And I was asked to step up. And that's one of the things that I would say. When you get asked to do something, no matter what it is, even if you've never done it, do it just to see what it's going to be like. If you fail, you fail, right? I mean, you can learn from that failure, right? So I think that that was the number one thing that got me was, they needed a vacancy to fill to fill that position, and my director, my leader felt that I could do that role. And so I that's how I got into the role. And secondly, though, is yeah, I definitely wanted to kind of like try out my chops in
Yeah.
that in leading a team. And I was thankful to have a team of great SEs that were very seasoned and it was fun leading that team. So
That's awesome. That's great. I think that's always one of the things like the target audience for this are people who are starting out their career or they're in their career and they want to hear from people's journey and stuff. And I feel like there's a point where people have to make a decision of do I want to stay individual contributor role and become a principal, whatever, or do I want to get into management? And always crossing that fork in the road is always one of the most challenging part in tech. So hearing that perspective is like super awesome, man.
yeah, 100%.
All right, so thinking about this again, the target audience for people who are starting out or they're in a career. So, what's one piece of advice you give someone who's starting out in their data career?
Wow. One piece of advice, man, you're handcuffing me a little bit.
All
Um,
right, three pieces.
it's sort of like you know how in when you were going through engineering or going through school, you get those tests where it says we only have one problem on the test, but it's got like A through Z, right? So I would say first off, you know, and this is kind of sounds kind of cliche-ish, but uh, you want to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. There are times in your career, in your learning, where you will be tested, right? And or you'll have that hard problem, or you'll be put into a position where you may have to lead the team, right? Be comfortable with being uncomfortable in doing that in the moment, because I think that it doesn't matter what that thing is that you're doing, whether it's like leading a team for a first time or working on this super hard AI LLM development project that when you were a data analyst or whatever, or just just kind of like if you got into a position where you needed to help coach someone on your team, right? Maybe your leader comes to you and says, "Hey, can you maybe mentor this person, but you've never mentored before."
Right.
Um, those are the moments where you get tested, and you want to just be comfortable with being in that uncomfortable moment. So I say it's cliche, but it's kind of easier said than done, right?
Yeah.
Um, and then also, I think I've heard on a few of your 10-minute Tuesdays where folks would say, yes, connections and networking. Those are those are definitely those are two things, same side, different sides of the same coin, right? It's all about making sure you connect with as many people as you want. And I will add this too. Connecting and networking is not just about saying, "Hey, my name is William," although it starts with that, but have a plan.
Yeah.
Like when you go out and you start connecting and trying to network with folks, have a plan as to how you want to, you know, how you can bring value to that connection, right? First and foremost, and then figure out how that connection can help you and some. But if you go into the mindset of a serving mindset of being able to help the person that you're connecting with, then that's great too. And another thing too, that like I said, this is part C of the one
Oh, this is
question.
awesome. These are gems.
The last thing I would say too is, especially when you're starting off in the early in your career, because I didn't do this a lot, always don't be afraid to ask questions, no matter how stupid or common sense they might be. Because as you well know in the data world, right, the question that doesn't get asked is typically the one that could possibly propel your project to the next level, or really allow you to create a great story or anything of that nature. Don't be afraid to ask questions. I learned that, like, I'd say about 3 years into my career, right? That, you know, don't be afraid to ask those questions. You know, there is no such thing as I don't think there's anything such thing as a dumb question,
Yeah.
right? I think all questions have merit. But another part of me says, well, there are some questions that you ask them. So there is, but I do think that having the right questions and be not being afraid to ask those questions in the moment is going to help you with your career as well.
Great gems. These are fantastic gems. I love them all. Man, three top ones that
Yeah,
I'm going
man.
to take some stuff away and definitely implement. I know definitely early on in my journey, I was a volume shooter when it came to networking. So I was just like, as many people as possible. Hey, 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 hey. But I've learned to scale that in to be more specific and understand who I'm connecting with and why versus just like connecting with every single body. Not to say you shouldn't talk to everybody, but
Yeah.
I love the importance of having a plan for specific things and a particular outcome that you're trying to go for and connect with those people that can help with that outcome as well.
Yeah, and I'll even add that too, Seku, is I think it's having a volume mindset with networking is actually 100% correct. You want to bring as many, if someone links in with you, then there's a reason why they try to link in with you a lot of times, right?
Yeah.
Could be a bot, but
You're
but the key thing here is that if you know that person, from if you know the name or whatever the case may be, but you never really just link in with them. I
yeah,
I I, I totally get making sure that because I think every connection has value, right?
for sure.
Um, and so doesn't necessarily have to be about you landing that next data analyst job. Could be that maybe it'll help you with, that person might be able to get you a discount on a trip to Europe.
Yeah. You just never know. You never know how it all
You
works
never
out.
know. You never know.
All right. Tell me about the most influential people in your life and how they made an impact on you.
Oh, that's a pretty easy one. My parents, so my mom and dad, and they have it. They influenced me on a couple of different fronts. They were two different people. My mom was, my dad was the one that was the, energetic, never met a stranger, always walked into the room like he owned it, that kind of stuff, right? And I think that I got pieces of him in the way that I actually approach my personal life. So that's I'm people say I have a type A personality. I don't have a type of I just love being around people and
Yeah.
being making folks laugh and that sort of thing. Um, but my mom, I learned from my mom the power of like, you probably have somebody in your life like this too, a person that has that quiet strength, right? It's like I like to call it quiet strength. They don't say a lot, right? But they're always listening. They're always like you probably heard the term, the person that you want to be cognizant of is the person that is not saying the most in the room because that individual has got both ears perked in. So my mom had that kind of quiet strength, that ability to just and then when she spoke, it was like bombs, right? Like these knowledge bombs being thrown at you. And so she was a high school teacher, and I learned a lot about being patient and being purposeful about approaching things and also just how to use the two ears more than the one mouth, right? So I think that balance for me helped shape how I work with life, how I work with my kids, how I deal with people in stressful situations at work. Yeah, I think those my mom and my dad were definitely my rocks.
Awesome. Love it, man. Shout out to mom. Shout out to dad. They're great.
Oh yeah,
Great people.
absolutely,
Awesome.
absolutely,
All
absolutely.
right. William, where can people find you at online?
Mm. Best place to find me is on LinkedIn. I've got just you can type in Summerhill or William Summerhill, and I'll pop up.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. This was a great episode. This is fantastic, man. Thank you so much for taking time out today.
Thank you, Sekou. And man, I don't tell you enough. Really appreciate what you're doing for the community, man. The fact that you've had this going for like 70 plus shows. It's big ups to you, man. Keep it up.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks so much.
All right.
We're gonna keep it going. And as I said in the beginning, if you haven't already, please like, share, and subscribe. We'll talk to y'all next week. Y'all have a great day.